Mommy. Naruto whined with a pout as his mother held him in her arms, hugging him close as they walked back to their home. He didn't feel tired at all and felt he could still train more. It was cruel to not allow him to practice after teaching him how to become omnipresent. Naruto almost managed to manifest himself at 10 places at once, and he was close to achieving 11 places, at least he was until his mother came and carried him away like a baby. Hera shook her head. No, your sister has left on her chariot already. So it's night time and you should be resting. The queen gently kissed the side of Naruto's head and rubbed her cheek against his soft hair, and you've been training too much lately. You need to spend more time with me and your father. I spend time with you every day, exclaimed the boy with his arms crossed. 1 hour every day is not enough, said the goddess of motherhood as she smiled at her baby boy. You're still a child and you should be with your parents all the time. If you're like this now, your father and I will never see you when you're grown up. I'm the god of family and fatherhood, Mommy, of course I would spend time with my family. Naruto hugged his mother around her neck and kissed her cheek. You don't have to worry. Hera smiled as she walked into the temple of Zeus, nodding back to the dozens of servants bowing to her and her son. Everyone had gotten used to seeing the new god in his mother's arms at this time of night and the happy smile on the queen's face. Since Naruto's birth there were no more fights or spats between Zeus and Hera, and the servants were all relieved. Many of them had died as collateral damage. The temple of Zeus had also changed. There were a lot more furniture for families instead of throne-like one seats, and the king would be home every single night. Lady Hera would spend almost every night at her husband's temple, and when she didn't, Lord Zeus would be over at the temple of Hera. Overall, the king and queen of Olympus had never been so close and in love. Can I not go to Athena's lesson tomorrow, Mommy? Asked Naruto while rubbing his eyes, his exhaustion starting to show itself. Nyakin is bringing me to Hepha's forge and I want to go there for the entire day. Maybe, replied the queen. Hera was conflicted about Naruto being so close to his half-siblings at first, but in the end she was happy to see her son so happy with them. Athena and Artemis often try to prevent Naruto's brothers from affecting him with their idiosyncrasies, which was great in Hera's books. And even though there was a chance that Apollo and Hermes may still turn Naruto into a playboy, they were still good big brothers and loved Naruto greatly. Then there was Hephaestus, who Hera was very happy to see Naruto being close to. Her crippled son had suffered enough already from her and her husband's hands over the years, and the queen was relieved to see him finally bond with his family. Since Naruto's birth, Hephaestus started to become more social with others and actually started to attend family dinners on a nightly basis. Naruto's presence as the god of family was truly becoming the glue of Olympus. Please, pleaded the boy with puppy dog eyes, I really want to go to the forges. Hep said he'd make me a new sword. Hera smiled, Findash. Not tomorrow, honey. Zeus smiled at his wife and son as he greeted them in the living room of his temple, clearly having heard his son's request. His smile grew when Hera sat down next to him on the sofa and when Naruto crawled over onto his lap, grinning up at him with all the innocence in the world. It had been almost 7 years since Naruto had been born, and he was still a child, something that Zeus and his wife were thankful for. All their children grew up too fast, it was nice to have one who grew at a slower pace. Tomorrow is April 22nd, honey. Zeus smiled as he ruffled his son's hair, it should be a good day for us to show Naruto Camp Jupiter. Hera hummed and nodded as she crossed her arms, sure. I think it is time for him to see the camps anyway. April 22nd, the festival of Jupiter and Juno, was one of the most important days for the Romans. It was the day they pay tribute to their most important god and goddess, the king and queen of Olympus. Every year, Camp Jupiter would have countless offerings for them and will host a large party for everyone in Camp and New Rome. Their temples will be filled with even more prayers than usual, and the other gods would sometimes contribute as well. Naruto grinned, so I finally get to see the Roman camp. Hera smiled and nodded, yes, you should get to know these places. The queen's hair started to morph from being golden blonde to obsidian black. Her long wild dress turned into black robes with an overlaying goatskin cloak. You don't have a Roman aspect, but you should get familiar with them and how they behave. After all, you might have to teach them a lesson as the god of family and fatherhood. Zeus' appearance changed as well. His beard and hair turned blonde and well-trimmed, and his dress shirt and slacks turned into a purple toga with a golden trimming. You are their godly prince, my son, and they will bow down to you. Naruto could clearly tell that in their Roman aspects, Juno and Jupiter were stricter, but their eyes were no less warm and loving when they looked at him, so he just smiled, I know. I'll make sure to pay attention tomorrow. You can go tell your sister about not taking her class tomorrow. I will tell Apollo and Vulcan for you. Okay, thanks Dad. The young prince sped out of his home with a blast of wind, flying through the air at great speeds. Since his father had taught him how to manipulate the wind with his powers, he had been zipping around Olympus as fast as he could. His mother had scolded him several times when he accidentally crashed into one of his father's statues and shattered it to pieces. Any statue could be replaced, but Hera was worried sick up to the moment Apollo healed the itcher-stained gash on Naruto's head. But Naruto had gained a considerable amount of control since then, so when his mother wasn't looking, he would still go as fast as he could. Feeling the wind contort around him made him feel powerful and in control, and it was just very cool. So, in less than a minute, Naruto flew all the way to Athena's temple. Athena, the god of wind, called out as he landed on the white marble floor of his sister's temple, "You're still awake, right?" Besides his parents' temples and the temple of Apollo, Athena's temple was Naruto's most frequented place. All his sister's handmaidens already know exactly who he was and would bow to him as he walked past them. But unlike the other temples, Athena's was more complicated. Naruto knew his own home like the back of his hand, and despite Apollo's temple's incredibly bright walls, he could still find his way around, but he still had trouble with his sister's temple. The temple of Athena was built like a maze, or a giant library. It was filled with identical columns with identical statues of the goddess herself at every corner of the place. Orange light from the illusion torches illuminated the place and cast perfectly patterned and proportional shadows along the most clear of white marble found on Mount Olympus. The only way to find his sister in such a place was to focus on her powerful signature, and Naruto was slowly floating his way to her. Athena, calling out the young god again with his hands cupped around his mouth. "I'm over here, Naruto." Athena was once again inside her personal library, sitting in the midst of the thousands of aisles that together formed her non-fiction section. The goddess had once told Naruto that she'd not only read all of her books, but she'd also memorized all of them as well. Naruto believed his sister wholeheartedly. In the 2 years that she had been teaching him, she had never once opened a book to actually read. Every time she would just summon a book for him to read and recite it word for word, and it was amazing to see. "Hey Athena," chirped the boy with a smile as he sat down next to his sister. A series of soft hooting from the side made Naruto smile. It was Glaucus, his sister's scared animal, and the first owl. "Hello to you too, Glaucus." Athena smiled and placed Naruto on her lap. "Why are you here?" Naruto started to gently brush the back of his fingers against Glaucus' soft feathers. "Dad told me to come tell you that I can't come to our usual lesson tomorrow." Athena raised an eyebrow and wondered what excuse her little brother had this time. "Apparently April 22nd is the date of the festival of Jupiter and Juno, and they want to take me to see the Roman camp." Glaucus suddenly turned and pecked Naruto's hand before flying away. "Ow, why'd you do that?" Athena closed her eyes. I see. The blonde looked confused and turned around on his sister's lap. What is it, Athena? Since he became the god of family, Naruto could sometimes sense his family members' emotions. And he was slowly getting better at it. Is something wrong? I don't like the Romans, Naruto. Athena's power was slowly rising as her gray eyes looked incredibly intimidating. Why? I am Athena, the great Greek goddess and one of the most powerful Olympians, but when I become Minerva, I am merely a weak goddess. The Romans took my powers in warfare and gave it to others, like Bellona and Mars. Naruto frowned, but you are still stronger than them as Minerva, right? He had seen how Ares react to Athena, he was always scared of her beating him into pulp. Athena shook her head. No, I was weak and resentful in that form. I hate being Minerva, and as soon as the Roman Empire collapsed I had never willfully returned to that form. Sometimes, just like the others, I would turn into my Roman aspect, but I hate it every time. She hugged her brother closer and sighed. That's why I've never seen you as Minerva. Many of my children have tried to avenge me, but none of them have succeeded so far. Avenge you? They stole my statue, Naruto. Athena muttered darkly. The original Athena Parthenon in Athens was taken by the Romans when they conquered the Greek Isles. It made me weaker. It is the worst insult they could have possibly made towards me, and I will never forget it. Did you take it back after Rome fell? No, Olympians aren't allowed to directly involve ourselves, so I send my children to get it for me, but none of them ever made it. Naruto crossed his arms. Can I get it for you? Athena looked down at him with a small smile. I'm not an Olympian, so I should be able to get it for you. And I've been to Rome with Nyakin before, so I can find my way around the city. You're a god, so the rules apply to you as well, albeit being not as strict. And what's to weigh that you wouldn't become an Olympian yourself soon? You are the son of Father and Lady Hera, and that makes you entitled to a seat on the council even more than me. Athena giggled at Naruto's confused face and poked his forehead. And people have wanted to kick Ares or Dionysus off the council for a while already, so there is a high chance of you being promoted when you're fully grown. Naruto shrugged. Maybe, but I don't really want it. Nyakin keeps saying that going the meeting are really boring. Athena smiled. That's because Apollo is lazy, and you don't want to be lazy. Whatever, before then I can still help you or your children get your statue back. Naruto smiled and sat up taller on his sister's lap. I'm getting stronger every day, you know. And I can soon bless humans just like you. I can bless them with powers over the wind or lightning, just like Dad can. Maybe, but not until you're older. Little brother, said Athena with a smile as she kissed him lovingly on the forehead, you're still a little boy, so just focus on your studies for now. Naruto pouted. Fine. The wisdom goddess lifted her brother into her arms as she stood up and walked out of her library. The boy was still small enough to fit comfortably in her arms, and she couldn't help but smile when he wrapped his arms around her neck and snuggled into her. Athena felt closer to her little brother than perhaps everyone else in existence, including her own children. The little boy had easily made his way into her heart like no one else had before. He was her darling little brother and she loved him. The two godly siblings made their way to the temple's large dining hall, and Athena placed Naruto down on one of the many marble chairs. The boy was still too short to reach the table with his height, but he hovered on the air to sit higher in his seat. Do you want anything to eat? Naruto grinned and shook his head. I got that covered. He clapped his hands together and a plate of chocolate chip cookies appeared in front of him, steaming hot and still soft at the center. Mommy taught me how to conjure up food. She says it's a part of being the god of family, cooking good home-cooked food. Naruto held up the plate for Athena. Try some, Athena. Athena smiled and bit into the nugget center of the cookie. These are very good, they taste just like the ones Lady Hera and Aunt Hestia make. Yep, Artie said so too, chirped Naruto as he ate one of the cookies whole. She ate 4 plates before dinner and couldn't even eat what her hunters made for her after. Athena laughed, it was just like Artemis to eat so many cookies. When you learn how to make shepherd's pie, Artemis will probably want you to live with her. Naruto giggled and nodded happily. You know, one of my daughters also love these cookies. The goddess sighed with a soft smile. I secretly sent a batch to her for her 6th birthday last year. Naruto smiled. Cool, so your daughter is my age. Yes, she was born a few weeks after you. Athena snapped her fingers and a holographic image appeared in front of them. Her name is Annabeth Chase. Naruto looked closer at the image and saw a young girl with golden blonde hair styled like princess curls sleeping peacefully on her bed. She looked very pretty and he smiled at the sight. She looks like you, Athena. Yes, she does, Athena replied proudly, and she's smart too. What's she like? She's still very young, like you, but she's not immortal, so she still is different from you. She's almost 7 years old and she already loves architecture and reading. I can tell that she will become a wonderful demigoddess and a great warrior. Will she be going to Camp Half-Blood? Athena sighed, only small monsters are attacking her now, so it should be fine, but as she gets older she would need training and will have to go to camp. Naruto frowned at the mention of monsters. He had seen some of them on his travels with Apollo, some hellhounds, cyclopes, several Colchis bulls and even the Nemean lion, and all of them had fled the moment they sensed the presence of 2 gods. No monster would ever try to bother an Olympian, especially one as powerful as Apollo. But Naruto knew that demigods only had a fraction of their power and monsters wouldn't hesitate to attack them. It made him angry that a part of his family was being slaughtered and they weren't doing anything to help them. So you'll have her family bring her to camp. Athena sighed, her family isn't being too useful right now. Naruto frowned as his sister continued, her father married a woman and they birthed 2 sons together. And they are not paying enough attention to my daughter as they should. She is complaining about spiders in her bed and they don't believe her. The goddess knew full well that spiders will always go after her children. And she wanted to smite Frederick for ignoring her daughter's plea. And the woman is angry at Annabeth for attracting monsters to her home and endangering her sons, and Annabeth clearly notices. Naruto crossed his arms. Can't we do something about it? Short of smiting them, no. This is why I wanted to become god of fatherhood. I want to stop these bad fathers from hurting their children. Naruto felt angry and unknowingly gathered storm clouds above Olympus. Why can't they see their mistakes when they are right in front of them? It's different for demigods, Naruto. Athena patted Naruto's head to sate his anger. The godly parent of demigods can't raise them, so they are always left in the hands of their mortal parent. In most cases these parents will feel burdened or troubled, having to raise the child on their own, especially since monsters will often come attack. But so what? Asked the blonde. They are their children, aren't they? The goddess smiled. Not everyone thinks like that, Naruto. Naruto huffed and shook his head. I don't like it. Well, as the god of fatherhood, maybe you can make it better. Athena smiled and kissed her brother's cheek, but before that, you should get some sleep. Father is going to bring you to Camp Jupiter tomorrow and you need to be fully rested. The boy smiled and nodded, okay. Good night, Athena. Good night, little brother. Camp Jupiter wasn't as cool as Naruto expected it to be, perhaps it was because of what the Romans did to one of his favorite sisters, but he felt angry looking down at them. He hated seeing the angered and betrayed expression on Athena's face. It made him feel angry and sad as well. Naruto loved Athena and wanted to help her. He had half a mind to fly down to the camp and interrogate the leaders until they told him what the Romans did to the Athena Parthenon. "Naru, are you okay?" asked Juno as she looked down at her baby. "You look angry." Naruto gave his mother a smile. "I'm fine, Mommy, I'm just a little tired." Juno smiled and ruffled Naruto's hair. "I told you to sleep earlier last night." She held onto his hand and guided him back to where his father was. "Come, we'll show you where everything is." Jupiter had conjured a large white cloud to use for the occasion. It was solidified and an impromptu pavilion was settled upon it. Many of the gods and goddesses were present and they all lounged on it. Lady Vesta had conjured a large hearth in the middle of the pavilion and she along with Ceres and Venus sat around it. Naruto sat down next to his father and sipped on a glass of nectar. "Athena isn't coming today, right?" Jupiter smiled sadly and shook his head. "I don't think so, son. Minerva rarely attends any Roman festivals. She doesn't even like attending her own festivals. She doesn't like to be called Minerva, Dad." Naruto frowned as he continued to sip on a drink that tasted like the ramen he had in Tokyo. "Just call her Athena, that is her real name." Juno, having heard what her son said, smiled and patted his head. It was obvious that Athena had told Naruto about what the Romans had done to her. Knowing how loyal and loving her son was to the people he loved, Juno wasn't surprised at his sour disposition. Out of all his siblings, Athena was probably tied with Apollo and Artemis as Naruto's favorite. The queen hoped her son wasn't overly angry at the Romans. She didn't want to see a tornado destroy the camp on her festival. "Naru, that's New Rome," said the queen as she pointed to the small town below them. "That's where the Roman demigods live after they complete their service at Camp Jupiter. It's a nice little community and it is modeled after the original Rome." Naruto smiled. "That looks pretty cool, I guess." "And there's your temple," said Juno excitedly. "We had the Romans build it the year you were born. Your statue will be built when you are fully grown, but some people already pray there for good weather." The young god nodded. "Yeah, I hear them sometimes." Naruto will never forget the first time he heard a prayer. It was a strange sensation that made him a little stronger and he could hear the person's voice very clearly as if they were standing next to him. Though he was still waiting for someone to pray to him regarding fatherhood or family. "Then that is Camp Jupiter, the place where Roman demigods train to become a part of the legion." Jupiter nodded at his wife's words. "Yes, and it is different from Greek training. Roman training focuses on teamwork and formations instead of individual skill." Naruto nodded. "I know, Athena taught me all of it." The other gods were all enjoying themselves as he looked down at the nostalgic sight. I do miss the Roman bathhouses," muttered Venus with an incredibly gorgeous smile. Apollo, dressed in a formal business suit, smiled and nodded at the goddess of love as he held a glass of nectar in his hand. "Yes, those were quite nice at times, though I think I miss the music the most." Naruto smiled at his favorite brother. It was a little weird to see Apollo in his Roman aspect since he acted more calm and serious than usual. "I'm rather indifferent," replied Diana as she stood next to her twin. Roman woods were not too different to the Greeks or even the Americans. "I don't care for such simple leisure." Naruto frowned at the sight of Mars, by far his least favorite sibling. Even in his Roman form, who many found more tolerable and respectable, Naruto didn't like him. The Romans were disciplined and battle-hardened and that is all that matters. "Naru, come over here." Naruto smiled at Diana and flew over to her. "Hey, Artie." The goddess smiled and patted his head. Call me Diana when I'm in this form, little brother. Okay, Anna. The huntress gave a small laugh as she held onto her brother's hand. Come sit with me over here. Naruto hadn't visited her hunting camp recently and she wanted to spend more time with her favorite sibling. The Romans are about to all pay tribute to your parents. They are all lined up at their temples with sacrifices and offerings. Naruto stared down at the formal-looking people. They all look serious. The Romans are stricter than the Greeks, especially on these special occasions. It was a little boring for Naruto, so he just looked up at his sister. Do you want anything to eat, Anna? Diana's eyes sparkled as she licked her lips. I wouldn't say no to some cookies. Naruto giggled and clapped his hands together, making a plateful of peanut butter cookies appear on his lap. He gladly held up the plate for his sister, who immediately grabbed one and wolfed it down. Naruto knew his mother was right. Cooking for family and watching them enjoying the food felt good. Don't eat so much, Diana, or you'll get fat. The huntress rolled her eyes at Venus. Whatever, Venus. The young prince smiled up at the lady who looked like a mixture of his mother, Athena, and Artemis. Do you want some, Venus? The goddess pouted. Ah, don't you have a cute nickname for me? Naruto would usually call Aphrodite Dite, but he didn't have one for her Roman aspect. Venus smiled and kissed him on the cheek. It's fine if you call me Dite. My Greek and Roman aspects are identical. Love is universal after all. Naruto nodded. So do you want some, Dite? Sure, exclaimed the most beautiful goddess before she bit into one of the heavenly cookies. Peanut butter, one of America's greatest accomplishments. She smiled and hugged the little god close as she kissed his forehead. I'm so glad there is one male god who can cook well. All your brothers can't cook a meal to save the world. The blonde giggled. Mother and Aunt Hestia taught me their magic. Immortal, strong, handsome, a family man, a guaranteed great father, and a wonderful chef, listed the goddess as she sighed. You are going to be a very good catch when you are fully grown. Yep, Apollo patted his little brother's head and grabbed a cookie. You're going to be a real hit with the ladies when you're older, Naruto. Diana smacked her twin upside the head and glared at him. Stop trying to corrupt him. She turned to the goddess of love and glared at her harshly. And you keep your claws off my little brother. Venus pouted as Diana hugged Naruto protectively, blocking him from the goddess. I'm not going to let you take advantage of his love for family. You're just saying that because Naruto might have a crush on Zoe. He doesn't have a crush on Zoe, he just thinks she's really pretty. Ah, but I'm prettier, right Naruto? Venus winked at the child, but was violently pushed back when Diana blasted her with a wave of power, her body flickering, almost showing her godly form. Stay away, you pedophile. Naruto couldn't help but smile as he looked at his family bickering with each other. They weren't that different in their Roman forms, they were dressed more formally and their insults weren't as degrading, but they were basically the same. They may appear vastly different to demigods or humans, but to Naruto, they were still his family. He could feel the love they all had for him and it felt the same as when they were in their Greek aspects. He laughed as the bickering Olympians were all called over to Jupiter to receive his scolding. Unfortunately for them, his father was even scarier as Jupiter. Hello, Naruto. The young prince looked behind him and saw his sister, his Roman sister. Belle. Naruto had only met the goddess Bellona a few times, but he loved her nonetheless. She was nothing like her twin, Mars. Bellona was sweet and charming, a little like Athena in her own right, besides her being the Roman war goddess. She taught Naruto briefly on how to use a shield to defend as well as attack the few times she visited their mother's temple, and Naruto would love her lessons. Bellona wasn't nearly as powerful as Athena, but as a sister, she treated Naruto with just as much respect. "How are you doing?" asked the Roman goddess, still making Mars angry every day. Naruto chuckled, "Yep. So I heard you are also the god of fatherhood and family now," Bellona stated as she crossed her blood-stained armor. "Interesting choices. I didn't expect you to choose such sentimental domain given how powerful your other domains are. I love my family and I just want to make sure they're all happy." Naruto grinned and crossed his arms. "It's nice to see everyone together and happy. You take after mother more than you do father." Yep. Everyone had told Naruto how much he resembled his father, but he thought he was more like his mother. He inherited a part of both his parents' domains, but he enjoyed being the god of fatherhood and family more than the god of violent storms and the four winds. He fully agreed with his mother's belief of family and the sanctity of marriage. He would never play around with multiple women like his father did in the old days. "You really love your family," Bellona said as she placed a hand on his shoulder, "which is why I need your help, Naruto." The goddess suddenly frowned, which made Naruto worry. "As the god of fatherhood, you are the only one who can help me right now." "What is it, Bell?" He could sense his sister's conflicting emotions as she struggled to tell him her problem. "It's my daughters." Bellona sighed and led her young brother to the side of the pavilion. "They are having a lot of trouble with their father, and I can't help them without violating the rules. But since you are the god of fatherhood, you are well within your domain if you were to help them with their situation." Naruto nodded. "Of course I'll help them, they are my nieces after all." Bellona looked relieved. "Thank you." She knew she couldn't ask any of the Roman gods and she didn't really know their Greek aspects that well. When she heard about Naruto's new domains she knew he would be her only hope of helping her children. "I owe you, little brother." "Don't be silly, Bell, you're my sister." He smiled and laced his fingers behind his head. "What are the girls' names?" "Hyla and Reina."